Good morning, everybody. Looks like we've got James Hopper Sr. already scrolling up the screen there. Well, that's what it looks like. Maybe that's from carryover from last night. I can't tell. It's hard to tell sometimes with the way these things work. But I can tell you for sure, cousin Jerome, twice removed, has been removed for a third time. He probably won't be making any more appearances anytime soon. There's Ted Martin. Good morning from Wiley, Texas, and Bill Allen from the UK. Well, and Tanya Lewis. Good morning, everybody. 31 viewers, it says so far. You know, after spending all that time preparing for the Christmas show, I didn't spend very much time preparing for this morning. So I was planning to keep it mostly just open. And so I want you to start thinking about your questions now. And you can even start putting them in there if you want to, put 2 or 3 question marks in front of them. And Daniel says, hey, it's nice to see you, Christina Thompson. It looks like, or Christia Thompson. It's hard to read, my eyes aren't focusing real good this morning. She said she enjoyed the show last night. Well, thank you. We had fun with it. As you could probably tell, it's totally unscripted. We don't plan any particular thing in any particular order. It just happens as it happens, and we just have fun with it. And yeah, there's a few more people commenting on the show, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. All the comments last night were super nice, and we really did appreciate it. Had well over 300 people at one time live, and pretty much as soon as we got finished, there was already something like 1,500 views on the videos and stuff. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, I've got the mandolin in my hand this morning, and I thought if I run out of things to talk about, well, I'll show you some of my playing lead style. We've talked about that before, and in my style, quite honestly, and I'm not saying this for sympathy, I'm not saying it to get you guys to go, oh, you're way better than, I'm not looking for those kinds of comments. The truth is, I know where I stand in the mandolin world. It is, on the totem pole, it's pretty far down toward the bottom, really. I can, where I can sort of shine is I can take a break on pretty much any song the first time I hear it. So that's one positive thing about the way I play mandolin. But I did see a comment or two last night about my mandolin playing, and it was very, very super positive. And I just wanted to kind of set the record straight and explain to you that I'm not the guy to look up to when it comes to playing the mandolin. I just wrote down quickly 5 names. Now, there are dozens of great mandolin players out there, and I'm leaving 99% of them off this list. But if it's up to me, these are the ones I really like to listen to. Sierra Hull is at the top of the list. And how often is a gal, at the top of the list on something, playing instruments? And I don't mean that in any kind of a sexist way. I just mean kind of just as a fact. I mean, how many times do you see a girl at the top of the list? Well, Sierra Hull is at the top of my list. I mean, she is one incredible mandolin player, but she can play everything, And then the second one on here is Adam Steffi. Then I've got Sam Bush. And believe it or not, my next one is Jeremy Chapman. He's highly underrated as a mandolin player. That boy can play a mandolin in every kind of circle you want to. He can play with anybody. He is really good. And then Doyle Lawson, of course. So those are my 5 names. So if you're out there, struggling to learn to play and you want to listen to people, start listening to some of those guys. Those guys are really, really, really good. Yeah, and on a scale of 1 to 10, if those guys are bumping 10, well, I'm bumping about a 2 on their scale, So that'll just give you some idea. But there are some advantages to the way I taught myself to play. And if for risk of repeating myself like I always do, my uncle, was a really good mandolin player. He was a Bill Monroe style player, a Jimmy Martin fan and Bill Monroe fan, all from day one. And my uncle was considered to be like the father of bluegrass music in Missouri. In fact, he was the first inductee into what used to be a tri-state Hall of Fame. I think it was Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri. Anyway, when I started playing, he didn't know I was playing mandolin, and he heard me playing it at a festival. He walked up behind me and says, "Son, I didn't know you played mandolin. How long you been playing that mandolin?" And I said, "Oh, I've been playing it about a month now." It was just a little cheapy Kmart special. It was nothing, nothing to be proud of. I can tell you that for sure. And he says, "Well, son, I'll tell you what, for only a month, you're doing about as good as anybody I ever heard." He says, but then, he's not one to just give you a compliment and leave it at that. He says, "But I can't hear you. You sound wimpy, and you need to learn how to play double notes." And he turned around and he walked off, and that was all he said. Okay, I sound wimpy. You can't hear me, and you got to learn how to play double notes. Well, he didn't explain any of that. But me being like I am, I kind of tucked my tail, and, keep in mind, this was way back before internet, so you couldn't just Google something and figure out what anything meant or anything. So I pretty much just tucked my tail and went home and played by myself for about a year, trying to figure out how to play double notes and all that kind of thing, and so that I could be louder and I wouldn't be wimpy. Well, I think I at least accomplished those things. Don't necessarily think I did it the best way, but I did it. I thought, single notes is hard enough. Just playing single notes is crazy hard, I thought. And how do you play double notes? Well, I figured out how to do that by playing always in the chord position. And, if you stop and think about it, whenever you hit your full chord, now, like, I'm using the old Bill Monroe chord, which is all four fingers, like that. Well, you've already got all kinds of harmony going on between your fingers, you know what I mean? So that's how I figured out how to play double notes, was just to play pretty much out of chord positioning. Now, I know my critics instantly are going to say, "It's very limiting to do that. You're limiting." Yeah, I know that. I already said, that's why I gave you this list here. But, the point is that it still is kind of cool in that if you know the chord pattern of the song, and that's the main thing, it's just like your first time through the song, you just listen to how the chords are going. If you know how the chords are going to pop up, even on like that hot burrito breakdown last night, don't get me wrong, we've been practicing that one a little bit, so I kind of knew that one. But even the first time you hear it, you can kind of get through it, even though it's got all those weird chords. That's in G, but it's got like a B flat in it, It's crazy, Anyway, So that's how I taught myself to figure out how to play the double notes and how to be louder. And when you are playing double notes, you're louder than if you're just playing single notes. You got a lot more going on. So basically what I'm doing is I'm playing harmony to myself almost all the time. I don't know if I can get up close enough, or maybe I can turn the camera down just a little bit here so I don't have to strain so hard. But just like on a simple song, like we played Sled Ride last night. So here's how I do that. Now, this is not the way these guys are going to do this, okay? In fact, Sam Bush, on this list, Sam Bush got up out of his chair, walked right up to me, put his nose about 1 foot from my hands, and watched how I did it. He goes, "I ain't never seen nobody do it like that before." And I'm playing in front of the crowd at that moment when he did that, and so I'm up on, I'm basically on stage, although it was just a deal where you show your style of playing, But that will kind of make the other end pucker a little bit when you get Sam Bush that far from your mandolin. Anyway, here's how I do the Sled Ride. I think I got one out of tune. Maybe not. Maybe I just bent the string a little bit. Now that probably doesn't mean anything to you right now unless you know the chords. But so like I'm in G, so I'm playing out of this G position. Now I'm going to go to C. Back to G. Now I'm going to go to A minor. D, G. A minor, D, G, C. But you notice I'm playing double notes almost the whole time. So the point is that you can do that if the easy way to do that is to play out of your chord positions and start noodling around. Just monkey around with it and just pick any song like Blue Ridge Cabin Home. And I have not practiced this, so it's just off the top of my head. But like Blue Ridge Cabin Home would be, there's a well-beaten path on this old mountainside where I wandered when I was a lad. That's just 1, 4, 5. In other words, G, C, D in this case. So now if I'm going to play that, I go C, D. Now that's the very simplest way I can show you to do it. I mean, you can dress this up a little bit, you understand, but that's how you kind of start learning how to play the lead to a song when you don't even have a clue. You just basically play notes out of the chord and then just noodle it around and come back around. So there's a well-beaten path on this old mountainside where I wandered when I was a lad. And I wandered along to the place I call home in those Blue Ridge hills far away. That's how I did it. I mean, there's nothing more to it than that. And it really isn't any more complicated than that. And then, you know, it even works better on the more complicated songs, believe it or not, because you're switching chords more often, and it sounds like you're playing the melody a little bit anyway. A good example with, I think, 7 or more chords is Redwood Hill. And I haven't done this in so long I forgot how it goes. I climbed the Redwood Hill. It was on a rainy day to rise above the throng and to talk to Mother Nature for a while. G, D, E minor, to B, to C, to G, A, D. Now I'll pick it. G, D, E minor, B, C, G, A, G, D, E minor, B, C, G, A, D. So, I mean, like I said, the more complicated the song is, believe it or not, whether you want to believe that or not, it's actually easier to play with my style. Because it sounds like you're getting more of the melody in there because you're switching chords much faster. When you have to play one chord a long time, it's harder to do this stuff. That's for instance, some of the old fiddle tunes that are just two chords, I have way more trouble with those than I do with the ones that have a lot of chords. Like Sally Gooden, I can't play Sally Gooden at all. It's Sally Baden all the way whenever I try to play it. I can't play nothing on Sally Gooden. So I'm not even going to try to show you because I can't do it. It's just that simple. And and do I play that way on every single song in the world? Not really, but most of them, I'd say 90% of them I do. But there's a few songs where I'll try to play it a little bit more like your average mandolin player. Like Old Joe Clark is an example where I play the first half of it sort of like your average mandolin player, and then I play the second half with my weird style. So, and I haven't practiced this either, so let me see if I can do that. And you'll kind of hear the change because it's a little different sound. So the first half was pretty much all single notes, and the second half was mostly double notes. Well, that's kind of the sad truth of it. That's how I do it. And like I said, I'm not suggesting that everybody learn my style. What I'm suggesting is if you're having trouble learning how to play lead, the way I do it kind of makes it a little more easy. See, it's not the same thing as the scales. When you have to learn scales, I'm not saying that's harder necessarily. I think if you learn that from the beginning, it's probably just about as easy. But the cool thing about my thing is, if you're not playing open notes, which I'm not playing very many open notes, no matter where somebody says or what key they say to play it in, I don't have to relearn it. I can move it anywhere you want to. And again, let's go back to Sled Ride. So Sled Ride would sound like this in G. Okay? Now, if somebody says, I don't play that in G, I play it in B flat. Like if you had to do that in scales, that might be a little tricky. It might probably not that hard for somebody who really understands scales, but for your beginner player, it'd be really tough. But with my style, it's a piece of cake. You just move down here. You're doing exactly the same thing. You're just moving it down the neck. You're not changing anything. So it does have a couple of real distinct advantages. It does have a lot of limitations. I'm not trying to say everybody should follow my style. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say if you're looking for an easier way to learn how to play lead, you've already got a lot of your lead right there in your chord if you just start using it. That's all there is to it. You just have to monkey with it. You got to do it by yourself and see what sounds good and how to combine things and how to make it work. Okay, let's go to some questions and see what we've got so far here. By the way, just in case you're wondering why I'm doing this morning instead of talking about something else in the shop, I walked all around this shop, looked in every drawer, looked in every cabinet, looked up on every shelf, trying to think, what is something I haven't talked about? I couldn't find a single thing. So there you go. That's why I'm doing this. Hope that makes sense to you. Let's see. I'm looking for question marks, and I'm scrolled up here, and I don't see very many. It's because you're so enthralled with what I'm saying. I can't even say that without laughing. Krista Christia Thompson again. Can you talk a bit about jam etiquette for folks that might be new to the way of playing? Yeah, Krista, I'll tell you what. This is almost a can of worms right here, especially in our area right now. There's, and I know the folks that I'm talking about here aren't going to be watching this, so I don't have to worry about it. And I'm not going to name any names, but we got a couple of pickers that come in to the jams recently, and they play loud, and they do things. They try to dress things up by adding extra chords. And, under certain circumstances, that would be fine. To add like an extra minor where typically there's no minor. But when you're trying to sing lead to something and people are throwing in extra minors and things like that because they know how, it doesn't necessarily make it easier to sing. You know what I'm saying? And so there's that kind of etiquette. You want to try to blend in with the folks you're playing with. Instead of standing out, if you blend in, you'll actually stand out, believe it or not. Music's only good when it is good. Whenever you've got all this extra noise going on, it sounds like a bucket of bees. It doesn't really sound like music. And, especially if you're doing things because you can, and you're throwing things in there that just don't necessarily go there, it really is kind of complicated. So that's one thing. The second thing, that would be the first etiquette thing, is to try to blend in. The second thing is, it's kind of, again, a little bit along the same lines, is, first of all, it goes without saying, timing is super, super important. So you should have good timing. But even when you have good timing, if you don't know the song, play your timing, but mute it a little bit and play in the background a little bit till you learn the song and learn the chord pattern. Because if you're playing loud, and you don't care and you just hit the wrong chord and somebody's singing, it screws them up big time. So play, in the etiquette until you know the song. Now, if you know the song, that's a different thing. Play normal and blend in, But if you don't know the song, don't be hammering it like this and hit the wrong chord. And we've got that going on right now. It's really messed up a lot of the jams. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot of people have dropped out of the jams lately because of it. We've got a jam tonight at the Houston House, and I'm going to go to it, but I tell you what, it's getting harder and harder to participate. It really is. So that's a big part of the jam etiquette, is to try to blend in with the folks you're playing with. And if you don't know what's going on, back off. And then, of course, the old-timers jams, and I was a part of some of those old-timers jams, was that the guys that are good kind of do all the stuff. They just kind of switch, back and forth between them, and the rest of us just kind of sit in the background. That's just kind of the way the old-timers jams used to be. Modern jams these days pretty much go in a circle. Everybody takes their turn. And, and I think that's the best way. I really do like that. I think that's much more fair. It's much more, fun. And without being obnoxious, you always try to help one another in a jam, and like if somebody's having a problem with a chord, you try to pass them the chord or give them some information, and help each other out. It should be a nurturing environment rather than a negative environment. I'm trying to think of what else etiquette-wise. I don't know. Pretty much what I've said covers about 80% of it at least. If you have specific questions about any of that, just go ahead and mention it, because I've been jamming for a long time. That's where I learned to play, was in jam sessions. That's really, really exactly where I learned to play. Okay. Next question. Mike Saba says, Jerry, I think that Marty Stewart, one of the best mandolin players in bluegrass music. Yeah, Marty's very, very, very good. There's no question about that. I don't disagree with you there at all. James says, I bet your fingers are sore. Truthfully, they're not sore at all. I really don't get sore anymore. I don't think I have any nerves left. No, they really don't get sore. I've got very heavy calluses on the ends. I think you can see there. In fact, it's funny. I do it every time. Whenever you go to the hospital and they take that little aluminum, stupid little prick thing to prick your finger to get blood, I always hand them this hand. And they'll bend the darn aluminum thing off, They'll look at it. Or either that or they get it to go in, but they can't get no blood out, So I hand them the other hand then. Anyway, let's see. RZH. But how many people can build, repair, and play a mandolin expertly? Jerry, Magic Fingers. Great show with excellent sound lesson. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Just a side comment on that, because you guys didn't know we were struggling with the sound here because the playback doesn't sound right. I was fairly sure the sound was going out to you guys okay, but when we play it back here, like we did a couple of just quick pre-recordings to just see how we were mixed in the thing, because you don't know. Because we got this one mic and that's it. That's all we had. And so we don't know who's too loud, who's not. You noticed I kept my mandolin over here and I kept it pointed away from the mic, because if, the mandolin would just overdrive the mic like crazy. So anyway, when we did that, we played it back. It just sounded muffled. It sounded exactly like you took a speaker and put a big heavy quilt blanket over your speaker. That's what it sounded like. It was terrible. And I think Windows 11 caused that. When I was at Windows 10, I didn't have any problem with that. And yeah, it just changed everything. And I finally found an EQ in the thing last night, and that helped. I turned the EQ on, and that did help. It still doesn't quite sound as good as I think it used to sound, but it sounded way better than the blanket thing. But anyway, that's a side note. You guys didn't know all that was going on. There's always stuff going on behind the scenes that you never hear about. But thank you for the nice comments there. I really do appreciate it. I'm sliding down here, and I hope I didn't go too far. It sometimes just scrolls way too much. Gary Smythe says, here in UK in the 1950-40, we had a banjo player called George Formby. I'm having trouble with my eyes this morning. Like there's like floaters and stuff going across my eyes. Was a massive star in his time. He mixed a ukulele and a banjo with a shorter. I don't know what a shorter is. Maybe that's a misspelling by accident. Tanya Lewis. So you are not using scales, but using the individual notes within the chord whenever you play. Yeah, that is absolutely 1,000% correct. I've told this story before, but I'm going to digress and tell it again because I think it's kind of funny because this is how little I knew. I really didn't know much. I completely, 100%, totally self-taught. Absolutely didn't learn nothing from nobody. That's the truth. I didn't. And it shows, that's why there's this list and me. But I'm not kidding you. You've probably never met anybody that's more self-taught than I am. I didn't copy anybody. I didn't copy a single lick from anybody. So, and I'm kind of proud of that in one way, and then I'm kind of like, oh man, that's not that good, But anyway, the point of telling you that is that I heard about this mandolin workshop down in Nashville. See, and it was put on by Butch Baldessari, and it was in about 1995. It was, I think that was just before John Hartford died, and Bill Monroe was dying at the time. He was in the hospital, and as a matter of fact, the guys in the workshop would go visit Bill during our lunch hour sometimes and come back and report on his condition. That's how close he was to death. Well, anyway, so when we get Well, when I first walk into that room, I think this is kind of funny too, because now I'm in Nashville. See, I've never been to Nashville before, so I'm walking down. I'm into Nashville. I kind of creeping into this, this conference room where this is going to be, and I see this huddle of guys that look just like a football huddle. I mean, there was 6, 8 guys in a huddle. They were in a really tight, close huddle. Just looked like a football huddle, and they had a mandolin in the middle, and I think it was the only colored Lloyd Loar is what they were looking at. And somebody said, "Where did you get that?" And I think they were pointing to this. And he goes, "I get that from Rosa Stringworks." So the very first words I hear when I walk in this place is my own business, And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So I walk in, I kind of get into the circle with them, and they look at me like, "Who are you?" And I go, "I'm Jerry Rosa Stringworks." And it was like a second after they said that. So it was kind of cool. But anyway, moving on from there, so now, we finally get in our seats, and Butch Baldessari is leading the class. And Butch, by the way, was a very, very good mandolin player. He had he was trying to revive the mandolin orchestra and was doing a pretty good job. And kind of like they had back in the 20s with Lloyd Loar and those kind of guys. Well, anyway, he was leading the class, and the first things he said were, and I'm sliding under the table. You're gonna learn how to play with scales. I didn't even know. I swear to you, I promise you, I didn't even know what a scale meant. I didn't even know what it was. And so I'm starting to slide under the table, and then he's going, "And you never use this little finger. Mandolin players need to use these 3 main fingers for the lead notes." And everybody in the room is going, yep, like this. And Sam Bush is doing this, and Roland White's doing this, and all the other good mandolin players and all the other guitar players, everybody's doing this, And I'm going, "Ooh," under the table, And so then, that's like the first thing he said. So then he says, "Now we're going to draw straws, and you're going to, have to get up in front of the class and show how you play." And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I violate every single rule they just said, and I got to show them how I play. And so this is not going to be good. Well, fortunately, I drew Wednesday, which was better than drawing Monday, which was that day, or Tuesday. So I had a little time to think about my strategy and how I was going to, make excuses for what I do, basically. So I told them the quick story about my uncle, and then I just went up and started showing them my playing, and I was doing okay. I was holding my own with them, and everybody was nice, and we were getting along pretty good. And anyway, so I showed them, and I'm using my little, and I explained that I was going to be using my little finger, and I know that's not the way you guys do it, but I said, this is the way I taught myself. And so, that's where, I swear to you, Sam Bush gets up out of his chair, walks right up and puts his nose this far from my mandolin. And that's kind of intimidating. So anyway, that's how I got to where I'm at, And so that is how I play. I just play notes within the chords. And that's also why another advantage, and it's not a huge advantage, but it's really an advantage when you're teaching other people, is I can be playing lead and tell them what chord that they need to be in, which a lot of guys playing in scales, they don't have a good clue what chord you need to be playing on your instrument. Playing chords in some ways, and only the people that really know how to play will understand this, playing chords is often harder than playing lead notes. It's often harder. And you probably think, oh, that can't be harder. You're just strumming chords. It really is often harder, especially on really complicated songs. So the advantage of this is that because I'm playing out of my chord positions and I always know where I'm at by my chord, I can call out what chord they need to be playing. So that's a real cool advantage. It's not necessarily the way to do it, but it's a cool advantage. Okay, moving on. Let's see. The next question is another Gary Smythe. He says, neck and strumming pattern he himself devised. Have you ever heard or seen of him? No, I never really have. I don't know about George Formby. That's who you're talking about. Sorry, quite honestly, I don't study it very much. I really don't. I never have. Should. I just don't. I guess I'm always got the excuse that I'm so darn busy with everything. It's like I don't ever really practice, ever. I mean, like, the only practice I get anymore is our Tuesday night gig at the restaurant, That's it. I don't practice other than that. Let's see. Hammer is asking, good morning. I'm a new follower and wish I had found you sooner. Well, you may change that thought later. I'm very interested in seeing some of the custom guitars you've built. Could you show some on some Friday morning? Well, I don't have very many, but I'll show you the two I still have next Friday morning because they're up at the house. I can't go get them right now, but I'll try to remember to do that next Friday morning, and we'll make that part of that show. Song's Home Style is asking, is it a good idea to glue in my double truss rod with hide glue? And I think he's laughing about that, so I guess that's a joke. Well, first of all, obviously the hide glue is the joke there, and no, don't, but on a serious note, and for the folks who don't know, you don't glue truss rods in. They're in there loose. They're not loose because you tighten them up, but you don't want them glued in place. You want them, to be able to do their thing and stretch and pull and all that. So you don't use glue on them at all. But the hide glue has been a standing joke on the channel forever. For those of you who are new, I always say hide is just an acronym. It stands for holds initially, delaminates eventually, and that is, there's nothing more true than that statement right there. Hide glue holds great for a little while, and then it just doesn't, and that's all there is to it. And that's how the good old boys in the violin shops make their living. They'll charge you major bucks, thousands of dollars to repair your violin, and then they know that in about 5 years they're going to get to do it again. Pitiful, just black and white pitiful. My good buddy Don Powers, who stopped in last week, I don't see Don very often. As a matter of fact, it's been years and years and years and years since I saw him the last time. And anyway, he stopped in last week, and he says, you repaired that fiddle for me back in the 80s. How come it's still together? And the truth is, because I didn't use hide glue. That's the reason. Let's see, moving on. Terry Sutterman says, what type of mandolin is that? It's that type. Now, there's several things here. First of all, it's an F-style mandolin. I've stylized it quite a bit by putting this extra body point on it here, doing a little extra carvings through here, all that. All this is just style. So I made the mandolin from scratch, for those of you who are new. It's a... it's a video series. I don't remember the number. Some of you guys in comments will probably remember the number. I don't, but all my videos are numbered, and there's a whole series of about probably 12 videos or so on building the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human. Now, before anybody gets all up in arms and thinks I'm trying to be, think I'm better than the rest of them, that's not the case at all. It's a goal. You should always have that as your goal. If you're going to build an instrument, your goal should instantly be, I'm going to build the world's finest guitar ever built by a human, or I'm going to build the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human. Is this the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human? No, but it's a darn good mandolin. And because I tried to keep my goal high and standards high, it turned out really nice. You can see I carved a rose in the back. You can see the extra carving on the back here too. You know, I did lots of nice little things. The binding is curly maple binding, and let me tell you, bending it in those little short curves and around this scroll, that ain't no easy chore at all. And for those of you who are new again, there's basically, you know, there's several styles of mandolin, but your two mainstream styles these days are your F style and what you call an A style. And your A style is kind of similar. It's just that it doesn't have this big scroll up here. It's just a teardrop. It doesn't have these body points. It's just a round oval kind of a teardrop shape. That's your A style. Then you have your F style, which is what they refer to as the Florentine style. Some people think the F means F-hole. It does not mean F-hole at all. It means Florentine. And it was I don't even know. I'm not a historian, but I know Orville Bush had a lot to do with the Florentine style. So anyway, and the Florentine style is basically all this extra fancy stuff, you know. But I always like the F style. Do the Fs sound better than the A's? No, not necessarily, not at all. It's really dependent on how they're made, how well they're carved, all that kind of thing is really what gives them the difference. Where you'll find your biggest difference in sound is between the F hole and the oval hole. The oval hole, to me, just sounds more hollow. It sounds more classical in nature. It sounds better to me when you're doing tremolo style music. Well, you know, like that. That's where the F hole seems to shine, in my opinion. That's just an opinion. I'm sorry, I meant the round oval hole. That's where it shines. And then your bluegrass hard driving sound works better, seems like, with these F holes. It works on the oval hole, but you don't get the same kind of punch and drive as you do with the F hole. So that's kind of the gist of the mandolins. Now, there are other kinds of mandolins too. There are flat top mandolins that aren't carved. I'm not a fan of those. They sound boxy to me. They sound kind of like you put strings on a cardboard box and play it to me. You know, I know I'm probably offending somebody because there's people that have flat top mandolins, and I'm sorry, but that's just an opinion, and I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I think they're great, because I personally, I'm not a fan of them for two reasons. Number one, I don't care for that sound, and number two, the tops often cave in on those flat top mandolins. Very often. I've seen it gazillions of times. So I'm not a fan of those. And then there's the big, what I call the chili dipper, the big round back, the Baroque style or the old, you know, come from medieval times type mandolin, where the big round back, bull back. Now those should sell for $10,000 because they're crazy hard to build, but for the most part, they're not worth a lot. I mean, you know, there are certain people, certain niches, certain, you know, people that would just love those and think those are the best ever. I got no problem with that. It's what you're into. I'm not into those. They're not worth much to me. So it's the F or the A style is where it's at, and then the F holes, generally speaking, is where it's at for the style of music that we play, old-time bluegrass country music. Long answer to what kind of mandolin is that? Okay. Anyway, let's see. I'm looking for where I left off. Didn't really scroll, I don't think. But I don't see that last question. I don't know where it went. So if it moved on me and I just don't realize it, I apologize. I'm going to go to this. Tom Rios looks like the next one. Did you know that B.B. King once said he was no good at chords? I'll tell you what, chords are hard. They're way harder than you think. In fact, I have more trouble with finding chords than I do with finding lead notes. Mostly because I already know the chords when I find the lead notes. If that makes sense to you, I don't know. Gary Smythe, would you like me to send you a link to someone playing a banjoli, as I honestly believe you would be impressed? Sure, go ahead, Gary. I'll take a look at it. Quite honestly, I don't hardly ever listen to music or watch music much. When I do, it's generally going to be somebody on this list. Or if I'm talking about singing, it's going to be somebody like Tony Rice. If you're new to bluegrass, check out Tony Rice. I mean, the man can sing, can play, just killer. Sierra Hull's incredible musician and a dang good singer, too. All these guys are super good musicians. Doyle Lawson is an incredible force in bluegrass music. Yeah, they're just all real good. But I'm 99% into bluegrass and old-time country, so it's not that I don't appreciate the other forms of music. I think they're great, and you know they can, almost anybody that picks up a mandolin can play circles around me, and that's pretty much the truth. James Cope, if I get a deer antler saddle from you and put it on my cheap learner mandolin, could I move it later to a better instrument? I don't see any reason why you couldn't. I don't, you know, I've moved them from one mandolin to another. Shouldn't be any problem. You know, I only make them to one size and one shape, and that's it right there. You know, well, that's sort of true. I mean, I make them all like this first, and then sometimes people want them radiused, and I will radius them and, you know, send them to you. But the holes are all the smaller size holes, so some mandolins require the bigger holes, and it'll be up to you to drill those out, or put it in the comments of the order when you make the order that you need the larger holes. And I think the larger holes are, I think they're 5/32. So if you need the larger 5/32 hole, then, you know, you might want to measure that. But otherwise, for the most part, these fit most mandolins. They don't fit every mandolin in the world. They fit most mandolins, like 95%. So there you go. That's all I can tell you. And I only make them one way, so don't bother, you know, asking, well, could you make one to fit this particular mandolin? The hole spacing's much. Nope, I don't do that. I only make them like this. So just so you know. I think we're about out of questions. It looks like the last one here is Terry Beeson. Do you have anyone, say Bill Monroe or other, that you credit as influencing your style of playing? Well, no, Terry, I kind of pretty much said that I really didn't copy anybody at all. Zero, none, not anybody. So if I was talking about an influence, I guess my biggest influence, and it's not on really the playing style, it's just more the music style, would be somebody like Doyle Lawson. I really do a lot of Doyle Lawson songs. I just like their general style and flow of their music and that type of thing. So if anybody influenced me, it'd probably be him. But in terms of playing, honestly, zero. Not one single person. And I know that sounds kind of, might even sound stuck up, but it's not. It's just the way I taught myself. I taught myself in a vacuum. And I am not exaggerating when I tell you that. It's just the sad truth. That's just the way it happened. I saw it scroll up, so I know there's somebody else. Hugh Caldwell. You were going to be coming over to Scotland to play at a local folk club before the lockdown. Any plans to do that again? No, Hugh, we don't plan it. Quite honestly, Hugh, that turned out to be like the biggest hassle of my life. I don't even know that I want to go into that, but it was just complicated beyond belief. And then, of course, when the COVID thing hit, which is my typical luck, because we had it all planned, we were ready to go, and I was really excited about going. Then we had to try to get the money back, you know, and oh my gosh, they didn't mind taking it, but they sure had problems giving it back. So I don't think so, Hugh. I would love, me personally, to go over there. And, you know, if I went, more than likely Leon would go, you know, and that would be kind of cool. But I doubt the rest of them would go. I mean, you never know. It's possible they might. Moving on. Jack Bombeek. Can you explain how you stain new wood to match existing wood? Yeah, not really. Well, that's probably one of my weakest areas, Jack. And I'm not trying to evade it or anything. It's just the truth. I am very, very colorblind, and I say that, and color blindness is such a weird thing. It's way weirder than you would ever believe. How do I know that? Because I live it. I don't see black and white and I don't think very many colorblind people do. I mean, I think there are a few rare colorblind people that do see just in monochrome type thing. I don't see that way. I see colors. The problem is I just don't see the right colors. And I have never, not even got close to passing a colorblind test. Digressing just a bit more, in biology class back in high school, we had the coolest old biology professor. He was just one of them old curmudgeon kind of guys, but he was a nice fella, neat guy. And he laid out all these charts one day on the tables, and I had no clue what they were. And all the kids, I'm looking at them, and I don't see nothing, just a bunch of dots. That's it. That's all I saw. And all the kids are going, there's a 24, there's a 13, there's a 7, there's a 9. And I'm going, what the heck are they talking about? I mean, I'm not seeing nothing. It'd be just like if you dropped a BB on a shag carpet. I don't see nothing. There's nothing there. And, and then I did see there were 2 of them that had numbers in them for me. And I'm going, well, I can see whatever it was, a 13 and a 19 or whatever it was. I could see those 2 numbers. So I'm telling Mr. Burroughs that, and he's going, well, you're colorblind. You're only seeing the 2 colorblind numbers. Because they put those in there so you can't fake your color blindness. Because everybody apparently can see those. That's what they say. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they say. So, up to that point in my life, I didn't know I was colorblind because I don't feel like I'm necessarily colorblind. But I can't, like matching colors and doing all that stuff, just like when I made this mandolin, people were saying, at the time, I don't think it's as red as it used to be, but at the time when the stains were fresh, they're going, it's red, right? And I'm thinking, I just did all this work and it's red, I didn't know it was red. I thought it was brown, because the bottle says brown. I can read that. I'm not colorblind to reading. And the bottle says brown. In fact, it said dark brown. Well, anyway, make a long story short, and it's already a long story, so I can't make it short. I just can't match colors all that well. So I don't think I'm the right guy to ask, but the way I typically do it, if I can do it, is I strip it down and start from scratch because that's easier. But often you can't do that. So when I can't do that, I just start taking these dyes. I like the dyes because they're alcohol-based, and you can mix them, and you can make them darker, lighter. You can take alcohol and wipe them off and lighten them up, even after you've applied them. So I really like using the Phoebing leather dyes. That's how I do it, and I just keep mixing and matching until it looks pretty good to me. And then I usually have to go get my wife or Emery or somebody go, does this match? Because I don't know if it matches. I can't tell. All right, so sorry for the long answer, but that's just the truth of it. Bluebird1223, do you like the mandolin playing of Jethro Burns and David Grisman? Well, the truth is I've heard both of them, but only a little bit. I've never really followed either of those guys, so the truth is I don't really have any opinion on it because I just don't know that much about them. I've heard of both of them. I've heard a little bit of both of them, but I just don't know much about them. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer again, but it's the truthful answer. Did I ever consider making a tailpiece instead of buying one? No, I haven't. Well, I mean, I thought about it because I've got a kind of a machine shop, and I could sort of machine one of these James-type tailpieces, but why? I would spend at least as many hours. Well, I'd spend way more hours in time in, you know, what I could make in the shop here than I would get out of making one. So I just never have. It's just easier to buy them. Tell us about playing the cheap shoes. Jeff Purist, tell us about playing the cheap shoes. Do you mean shows? And I'm not sure I know about that either. I don't know what that means. Terry Beeson, do you buy your dye from Springfield Leather? I have bought some from down in Springfield, Missouri. The name of the store, I don't know. But I think it was just a Tandy Leather store at the time. I don't know that it is, I'm not even sure Tandy's in existence at the moment. But I just order it off the internet now, off eBay. Now, the thing you should know about Fiebing's leather dye is it's at least two forms. It might be more, but there's two different kinds for sure. And the two that I'm aware of are the oil dye and the alcohol-based dye. Or the aniline dye, they refer to it sometimes. So the alcohol or aniline dye is what you want. You do not want the oil dye for instruments. And I just get it off of eBay for the most part, or Amazon or something. Scott Roberts, you might not be familiar with Jethro Burns' mandolin playing, but surely you are familiar with his great parody songwriting. I've heard a little bit of that too. I've heard some of his funny stuff, but honestly, it's been so long, I don't remember any of it, to be truthful. And you know, I'm kind of ashamed of that in some ways, but the truth is I don't listen to hardly anybody because I'm always working, just always working. And, you know, you might say, well, why don't you listen to it while you're working? Well, the camera's on. I've got excuses for everything. So there you go. We're about out of time. I can't believe this hour's gone this fast. Somebody asked for silver bells last night, and I said, you know, I used to do that. And so this morning, just off the top of my head, I did it. And then I looked up the words to see if I had all the words. So I'm going to try that right now, just for grins. Now, I don't pick this song, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to try to show you again with my chords how I kind of play around the melody. I don't really play it very well, but anyway, whatever. Here we go, Silver Bells. City sidewalks, busy sidewalks, dressed in holiday style. In the air there's a feeling of Christmas. Children laughing, people passing, greetings smile after smile. And on every street corner you hear silver bell, silver bell. It's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, hear them ring. Soon it will be Christmas Day. Now here's the kind of playing the chords. And again, I don't really know how to play it. Silver bell, silver bell, it's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, hear them ring. Soon it will be Christmas Day. Soon Yeah, and again, I know I didn't play that very well, but the point is that's how you start to figure it out. You noodle with the chords. The F, G, the C, back to F, and then G. It's not perfect. It's not even close to perfect. And it's not the way Sierra Hull would do it. It's just the way I do it. And as you do it more and more, you refine it more and more, and you find more of those critical notes. That's one of the things I did pick up from Butch Baldessari is you don't have to play every single note in the melody. You have to hit the critical notes. And that's true. If you hit the critical notes, it sounds like the song. And so you learn where those critical notes are out of your chord positions. That's how I do it. Or you learn them out of the scales, if you want to do it like the regular mandolin player of the world. I did see it scroll up a little bit more, so I'm just going to check here to see if I see any more questions. Scott Roberts is thanking Zappa. Apparently Zappa said hit the like button. So I would always appreciate that if y'all would hit the like buttons for me. It really does help. As I've said quite a few times, I'm trying to get to that 100,000 mark. I really do want to get 100,000 subscribers. And by the fact that you hit the like button, you are helping me getting there, because when YouTube's algorithm sees all the likes, it goes, this must be a good video, and it puts it out to more people. And those more people then will like something, or maybe not, but they might like it, and then they might subscribe, and then there you go. So it's just it's a feedback loop, it's a circle. So please help me out and do the like thing every time you can. And if you're on a smart TV, a lot of people say, well, I'm watching on a smart TV, I can't do the like button. For the most part, on most smart TVs, I'm not saying every one of them's the same, but for the most part, if you hit the up or down button, you usually get some little menu there when you're in YouTube, and then usually after that, then you can scroll up to the menu line or whatever and scroll over to wherever the thumbs up is, and then you click the thumbs up. Just click the center button on your up and down. So anyway, that's how you do it on a smart TV for the most part. Is everybody having their itchy boots withdrawals? I know she's back now again. She had a break there for a couple of weeks, and now she's riding in those what do you call those things? Those endurance rides or something like that. I don't even know what they're called now. But anyway, looks like she's having fun again, and she's going to be going down to Mexico apparently to ride in one of those races, and sounds like it'll be fun. I like to watch Itchy Boots. She's a good gal. Let's see. Last question, I think. Hugh Caldwell, what was your most satisfying repair job? Well, there's been quite a few, I guess. You've heard me tell the story about the guy that put the firecrackers in the guitar. That thing was de-flippin'-stroyed. I mean, it was destroyed. Anybody in their right mind would have taken that guitar and thrown it in the dumpster. And that's what I told the guy. When I got it back here, I opened up the case. It was pitch black dark when he gave it to me. And because I'm colorblind, I think, or at least I think that has something to do with it, I can't see it in the dark for nothing. I mean, like everybody else can see stuff when I can't see anything. Zero, nothing. And so I couldn't see it. So I said, well, we'll just put it in the car and I'll, when I get home, and this was in Dodge City, Kansas. And then when I got back to St. Louis, I opened up the case a few days later, and I called the guy and said, man, I'm just going to throw this in the dumpster for you. I said, there's no chance. The guy starts crying. And I repaired it, and I'll try to give you the very short version. Why he put the firecrackers in there, I'm not even going to explain, but he did. And anyway, 10 years later, after I repaired it, this phone rang. I was down here at the farm at this point, because I repaired it when I was in St. Louis. And I'm down here at the farm, and the phone rings, and she goes, are you Jerry Rosa? And I said, yes. She goes, well, you don't know me, my name is da 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 da, and my husband, you told him that if this guitar was a child abuse case, that it was the worst child abuse case in the history of the free world. And I said, lady, I know exactly who you are. And she says, well, my husband has passed away. And of course I said I was sorry. And she said, I've had an offer for his guitar that you repaired, and I just wonder if I should sell it. And I said, well, what was the offer? She said, $3,800. I said, sell it. So it was an old Gibson. I can't remember now. I think it was a jumbo, I think. I don't remember, to be honest with you. It might have been a J45 for all I can remember. It was from the 50s, and it was a nice guitar, but anyway, I had to make a whole new top for it. He had poured glue on the inside of it. The glue was that thick, and when I say that thick, I am not exaggerating. In places, it was probably thicker than that. It was a 1/4 inch thick, pretty much throughout the whole inside of the guitar, and I had to chisel all that glue out. Anyway, that was probably my one way most satisfying. Then chocolate, the violin chocolate was very, very satisfying. And quite honestly, the Larrivee mandolin, which I don't have it handy right now, but the Larrivee mandolin where I just fixed that neck was pretty dang satisfying because that was a bad break. The John Ford mandolin that I did the exact same thing to, it was broke perfectly even. It wasn't as hard to fix as the Larrivee because the Larrivee was jagged where it broke. And so I had to glue it back together jagged. Then I literally sawed it straight off right there, just completely straight off, and then put the angles to it and put it back together. And then, made it exactly the same size and shape as it was before the break. So those are the really satisfying ones. The ones that are really, really challenging are the satisfying ones. I'm going to say that's it for today. Thank you so much for being so nice to me. 143 viewers. Didn't know if we'd have anybody after wearing you out last night. But Cousin Jerome, he's put away for at least another year. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in.